Welcome to this week's episode of Inside the Headset presented by CoachComm. This week, we sit down with Wisconsin-Eau defensive coordinator Brady Grayvold. In this conversation, Coach Grayvold discusses getting his start in the high school ranks, taking advantage of opportunities that you are given, and the uniqueness of football in the upper Midwest. But first, a word from CoachComm.
Deuce left, check with me. If they're in quarters match, we're going to Pittsburgh or Ohio.
They're in zero.
Let's go Hippo, Seattle, wide choice. If we call the protection right, it's 6.
When a play call is the difference between winning and losing, your headset choice could be your most important decision. When the call counts, CoachComm is the only choice for clear, dependable communication. Visit CoachComm.com for more info.
We got it, guys. Good job.
Now, let's get inside the headset with Coach Grayvold.
Coach, what's going on, man? How are you doing?
We're doing well, Mario. How are you doing?
Man, always good to connect with you. I'm excited about diving into the Wisconsin culture. I don't know much. I've never been up there, but I know you know all about it. So looking forward to kind of diving in. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to ask you the first question we always ask all of our guests is, when did you know you want to be a part of this great profession?
Yeah, I think there's a long story to it, but to make it short, I'm the son of a coach. My dad's been in football for, I think this is going on year number 37. He just officially retired for the second time, but I have a feeling this fall he's going to be coaching somewhere. But, my mom always jokes the first football game was 3 days old at his, he was coaching at Marquette High School up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So it's kind of one of those things, I think people, some people are born into it a little bit. It's something I always wanted to do. I saw him growing up. He was a head football coach and a social studies teacher. I did the exact same thing when I went to college. And I always joke, I always wanted to teach, but selfishly I went into teaching because I always wanted to coach.
Yeah.
And I still think to this day, he's been my biggest mentor. I'm lucky to have had him, I consider him one of the best coaches I've been around. And just the knowledge and the wisdom and the, parts of the game that he knows. But I think at the end of the day, it's always been something that's kind of been in my blood and just something, I wanted to give back. And I had such an unbelievable experience in college that it just reaffirmed, what I wanted to do with my career.
Right. Well, oftentimes we have these guys like yourself whose father was a coach, or, sometimes, mother was a coach, maybe in a different sport or something like that, but they've had these exposures to the profession early on. And on the flip side of it, some of them, although they end up in coaching when it's all said and done, they might have had some, I don't want to say negative experiences, but the volatility of the profession, the, moving in high school away from your best friend or girlfriend or whatever. And they had some of those types of experiences that might have pushed them away. Did you ever have any of those moments as you grew up, maybe dad not at your own Friday night games because he has his own deal that, might have rubbed you the wrong way? Or did you just understand it and appreciate the profession as it was as a young guy?
Yeah, so I understood it. Let me go back and I'll backstory this. He was my head high school coach.
Oh, okay.
So I had him. So he was the teacher in the school. He was the elementary principal. So both my sisters had him as a principal. I never had him as a principal. He taught 7th grade. I was in 6th grade. He took the elementary job. I went up to the middle school. So I never actually had him in class. But
right.
He was always a guy that if I were, you get in trouble in high school, it wasn't dealing with the high school principals. You had to go home to dad.
Right.
But in terms of that, there's multiple memories just going back of, this is back in the day when VHSs, you're still trading them. DVDs are just starting to get popular and helping them burn DVDs on a Saturday, taking a 3-hour trip to the Mackinac Bridge to exchange film with teams downstate for playoff games. There's just so many memories that, I don't think it ever wavered on my end because, I had it firsthand and got to see what he got to do for me, but I also got to see the impact he had on other people.
Yeah.
And that was something really, near and dear to me is watching all the people that still call him coach. And that still talk about him in that regard. Like that to me, I think is really cool. And it's that lasting impact that, he had as them, he had on them and, how that still happens and lives today.
Yeah, man, that's that's awesome. Two things there. You shared the story of hopping in the car. It's crazy to be in 2024 now and just think about how seamlessly we can exchange film, recruiting film, opponent film. And like the fact we used to have to hop in the car and meet somebody at a gas station halfway and swap tapes out and all that kind of stuff, man, that brought me back to some early coaching memories there. But But yeah, having that experience as a dad, as a coach, I think, as your coach, I don't even know why I was thinking about him coaching at a different high school or something like that. But were you able to separate at times, especially when you're in high school and you're actually playing for him, separate, being a son at the dinner table versus, maybe being the guy that missed the tackle in the game that Friday night? Well, how hard was that to kind of juggle as a player's son?
Yeah, and it's interesting. Like, I never had him. Some kids have their dads all the way through and coach them in all these different sports. Like, I did not have him as a baseball coach, basketball coach. I mean, he kind of stayed away and let everyone else coach me,
right?
Which benefited me because I got to hear difference of opinion, and he always took a step back. But I mean, there was always one rule. Once we got home, Mom said, "There's no football talk at the dinner table."
Yeah.
And that, I think it gives you an interesting perspective because, we were a small town. It's 2,500 people. We had 21 kids on our varsity football team. It's not like we're some, big school that had thousands of kids where there's a bunch of competition. I mean, we had who we had. I think the hard part for that was just being able, like you're saying, to separate it and say, sometimes you're the player, which on the field, everyone gets an equal opportunity but you because you're a player. But then to go home, you can't be mad at dad because dad is dad and coach is coach. And, that it was really valuable to me to be able to separate that. And I think it's helped me professionally on
Absolutely.
What's said is said, what's done is done, get the job done. But once we leave here, business is business.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go be friends. Let's hit the golf course. Let's be able to do the things that we can do outside of football. But when it's a football, right, there is no feel good about it. It's we got to get what we need to get done, and it just needs to happen that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of pointed that question in that direction to see, for that same reason, because I do think there's some valuable lessons in that. Even if you're not a parent of your kid, I think I remember early on in my coaching career, man, I would take a Saturday butt kicking game and I would take it to my dinner with my wife. You know what I'm saying? I'm still negative. I'm still looking at my phone, looking at the video as it's getting uploaded, and there was a point in time in my career I was like, man, you know what? I get done with this game. I can worry about this Sunday. Let me enjoy the presence of my wife and all that kind of stuff. And so, definitely some opportunities to kind of learn from that, to be able to kind of delineate home life and that work life, although they blend so much in this profession.
Absolutely.
Now, I normally don't dive too much into playing careers here, but obviously played at a powerhouse program, defensive back at Wisconsin-Whitewater, two-time national champion. Not many people can say they are one-time national champion player or coach, but to do it twice. Now, this is the one that blows my mind, and I got to get confirmation from you. I'm going to pronounce this wrong. Gagliardi. Yeah, what's that? Pronounce it.
The Gagliardi Trophy?
Yeah. Now, you were a semifinalist for this deal.
That's correct.
That is correct. Wow, that's impressive. And which that is rewarded to the top D3 player across the country, and first team All-American in 2014. Still holds multiple records at Wisconsin-Whitewater. I guess I'm baffled by it because I've just known you for such a long time and only known you as coach, but didn't realize you were such a tremendous player. What about playing in a program like that, being a top caliber player in the country, helped you prepare for the profession?
Yeah, I was extremely fortunate. My career started at Northern Michigan University, and we went through a coaching change that essentially was, hey, we don't know if you're good enough. And I had never been to Whitewater, Wisconsin in my life. Took a random trip down there, solely transferred for the purpose of football. Probably a bad reason to transfer, but solely was like, I want to go somewhere that values football.
Right.
And now being back in the league with them, it's interesting to take a step back and see from a different perspective. Because now we're on the outside and we play them every year. But I mean, that program, and I say this, everyone knows the name Lance Leipold. It's Coach Leipold to me. That's always going to be forever coach. I mean, I would argue that man, changed my life, saved my life, gave me an opportunity. Probably should have cut me when I failed the 300 conditioning test the first time I showed up on campus, way out of shape in 2012.
Yeah.
But that program, it's carried me a lot in a lot of ways. And I think the reason he's had success everywhere he's gone, be it Buffalo, be it now at Kansas, where he's taking Kansas from the cellar to, top 25 program and everyone's talking about him. I think a lot of those values, the organization, how he ran a program, how he treated people, right? And I think that was really important. Like, as a player, they're like, he had ridiculously high standards and really high expectations, and that was hard, right? Like playing at good football programs is hard. But it also prepares you for life. I mean, there's been a lot of situations where I've been able to look back and say, we've gone through the wars, we've been through the storms, like we've met adversity before and we've seen it in these situations. But to be able to go there and see firsthand, between him and Coach Borland and Coach Bolus and all these different coaches that are tremendous men and really good leaders, to see how they carried themselves and how they operated and ran a program. I mean, that's shaped pretty much everything that I know.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, honestly, I didn't connect the dots. It was Coach Leipold's time there, and just what he's doing is awesome at Kansas, and not surprising to me by any means, and I'm sure totally not surprising to you. But I just love to see success at multiple levels, because at the end of the day, football is football, and it becomes so much about how you can motivate the young man out there on the field to play at a high level, and he's proven that multiple places. Now let's get back on track with your career. You obviously have this tremendous playing career. You grow up in a football family. Your first gig is as an assistant coach at Sun Prairie High School. How did that come about? How did you get on the radar for those guys, and how did you get that first job?
Yeah, so I kind of came to a crossroads. It was that December we had just won the national championship. I was supposed to start student teaching, which I'd make a plug. In America, we should pay student teachers. It's free labor. These kids are teaching in other teachers' classrooms. Yeah. And I was kind of at the crossroads, like, do I want to go try and GA? Do I want to get my teaching degree? What do I want to do? And I ended up student teaching. And was still exploring the idea. I was helping out a few things at Whitewater, just helping in recruiting, just kind of trying to keep my feet wet and just see, like, where do I want to go with this? And then I ended up applying pretty much to the 10 best high school football programs in Wisconsin. It's just Sun Prairie, the Arrowheads, Franklin, Kimberly. I mean, there's just a bunch of schools in Wisconsin that play high-level football that are big. And I wanted to be in a metropolitan area, being from a small town, and just kind of tri-city living a little bit. And Coach Kaminsky actually played at Whitewater. He was a defensive back as well back in the 90s. And I just kind of got linked up, and my name came up in the interview, and I ended up getting a social studies job. And it really came down to, truthfully, it was, do I want to try and GA? Which you're not making any money, and I've never had any money. I mean, I drove a 99 Buick with a cracked windshield my entire career. Thankfully, my parents got me that car. But I mean, like, we were middle class. Like, I was like, do I want to be poor and try and get in the college coach and make a run at this, or I want to take, a $40,000 teaching salary and actually have like money for the first time in my life? Yeah. Which it doesn't seem like a lot, but when you're 23, you're living.
That's right.
Right. That's in Wisconsin, and I mean, there's just a lot of benefits to it, but I knew Coach Kaminsky's program, and Coach Bass was there, and a bunch of different guys I still consider friends that still coach and teach there today, that they ran a top-notch program. They believed in a lot of things I believed in. I really just wanted to learn. I wanted to try and find someone that could teach me, because I found out real fast, just because you're a good football player doesn't mean you know anything about football.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And that just totally shocked me.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting you say that, because, growing up, my dad wasn't a coach or anything like that. I was always kind of a football junkie, football nut. I thought I knew a lot. After my playing career, I got my first job. I'm assuming you approached it like most other former college football players, where it's like you know everything, and not arrogantly. You just you've seen everything, you're prepared for everything, you know the grind and all that kind of stuff, and you kind of get in this. My first job was a high school job, and it was the same thing. It was like, oh, wow. Oh, dang, no, I don't know what you call this. I don't know. It was a bunch of stuff that I didn't know. I knew just enough to know I didn't know. But you did have that advantage of kind of growing up in that household and seeing a lot of stuff. And I was also surprised by the grind a little bit. What was that learning curve like for you as basically a kid that grew up around the profession your whole life? What was the learning curve like?
Yeah, I think it was a big learning curve. The cool part was, when my first year there, I was the assistant wide receivers coach, which I had no experience coaching wide receivers, no experience, on the offensive side of the ball, other than being a quarterback and an average one at best in a high school wing T offense.
Yeah.
So I mean, that the challenging part, and the schematics, I felt confident. I had done enough. I remember all the things I could rely back to. We had done at Whitewater, but I was a one-track mind, and I think a lot of young guys are, where you think you know it because you played in something that was really successful, and that's how you do it, and that's the only way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you get somewhere where it's totally challenges what you know, and you're like, well, I don't think this is how it should be done because we did it this way. And it really forces you, and guys with experience that have done it at a high level for a long time, I will say, well, we've done it like this and it's worked really well. Why don't you take a step back and see if maybe this is better than the way you did it?
Yeah.
Right. And so that learning curve was interesting because I felt confident being able to talk football.
Right.
But then to be able to go out on the field and be able to say, okay, freshman wide receiver, who this is the first time he strapped a helmet on at the high school level, how do you teach this kid?
Yeah.
How do you progress him? How do you get him from freshman year to a senior year to be a starter? And there's just a lot of things where you start to learn, like the X's on the board, are real people.
Yeah.
Right. And they have emotions and they have, feelings, but they want to get better. They want to learn. And, there's just, that curve was tremendous, just to be able to find out that you really don't know until you find out that you don't know.
Yeah. One of the things I've found interesting personally, I'll be curious of your perspective, especially having this, 5-year stint of where you were an active teacher, this 5-year stint where everything previous to this stint, you said it yourself, you left the University of Michigan to go to Wisconsin-Whitewater, and it was 100% of a football decision, right? And everything that you probably did in those years at Wisconsin, and the time at Michigan, was very football oriented. I remember being a former player, man. I did work outside of what was required because I wanted to be a great football player. And you get in high school, and these kids they're just not motivated like that. I mean, they're, thinking about their first date, coming up on the weekend as soon as football practice is over with. Hey, coach, I'm going to be late to practice. I got to go get a haircut. And you're like, wait, what? That was one thing that would drive me crazy. And so, how did you adapt? Number one, being a teacher, you were teaching so you could coach, but you still had a tremendous job to do in the classroom. And then number two, just kind of that realization that everybody isn't motivated to play the game the same way that you were, in the same way that you were acclimated, especially at a place like Wisconsin-Whitewater.
Right. And that's something, I say that I went into teaching to get into coaching, which is true, but I absolutely love, I taught U.S. history from the Civil War to present, and I had a ton of fun with it.
Right.
I taught government, I taught macro and microeconomics. I enjoyed teaching because, and it's been said a million times, but it's reality. Like when you're on the field, you're teaching.
You're just teaching.
Right.
For sure.
It's the same thing. It's all teaching. You're teaching 11 kids to go in a direction and do what they need to do. But in Wisconsin, it's not like some other states where, well, I'm the head football coach and that's just how I do it. Wisconsin, everybody teaches for the most part.
Right.
Right. So your job is to educate America's youth, which is a very important job. So just doing that. Every kid's not out there because they want to be a star football player. Some are out there because mom and dad are making them be out there. Some are out there because they have to serve a suspension and not get suspended in a different sport. Yeah. Some are out there because they are the star football player. Some are out there because they just want to be around their friends.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I thought, was really challenging, but it's helped me tremendously, between the two high school jobs that I had, is trying to figure out how to get a bunch of 15 to 18-year-olds in that age range all to want to play the game of football at a high level.
Right.
But they're all motivated. There is no NIL. They're not motivated by, dollars. They're not motivated by a car. They're motivated because they want to play, for their high school and with their buddies. Right. But to your point, how do you get the kid whose girlfriend just broke up with them? Or how do you get the kid who's failing class? Or mom and dad might not be in the picture. Like, how do you motivate them and get them to play at a high level?
Yeah.
And I think that it was really rewarding because those are the same kids that end up in college.
Yeah. Sure.
Right. A lot of the same issues, same problems, same issues. Right. Those issues don't go away. But to be able to acknowledge them and be, I can empathize with you and say, I understand where you're coming from. I understand the feelings you may be feeling. But, to go back earlier, be able to compartmentalize and be able to say, hey, on the field is on the field, off the field is off the field. You got to be able to compartmentalize your life a little bit.
Yeah. Well, after 3 years at Sun Prairie, you get a call that's relatively early for your age and your experience. In 2018, you get the opportunity to be the head ball coach at Fort Atkinson High School there in Wisconsin. First and foremost, how does this opportunity arise to such a young and, as respectfully as possible, I don't want to say inexperience, but just lack of experience. It's just 3 years into the profession, you're already going to have the opportunity to kind of run a program. How did that opportunity arise, and why did you think you were ready for the challenge, and why did the people that hire you think you were ready for the challenge?
Yeah, so that's Fort Atkinson is where I did my student teaching. That's right outside Whitewater, about 10 miles. So I got to know their athletic director when I was there. You know, when I was there, I was trying to help out as much as possible in different things and try and just get my name into somewhere in athletics, right? Just in case a job like that. Really cool community. I still say to this day, it's the best job I ever took, and it's the worst job I've ever done, right? I mean, we went 0-18. I own that. We were not good, right? Took the job because, and this is truthful, and I think it's important for a lot of young guys, you take a job because it's got a title.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm the head coach. What you don't do is you don't do the research on, is this the right job for me at this time?
Absolutely.
You know, I remember Coach Kaminsky had a very blunt conversation, like, I don't know if this is a job that you're ready for, but if you take it, good luck. Right? And it was one of those, I was like, man, I'm ready. You think you can, take on hell with a squirt gun because you think you know what you know. But that job, I did not do a very good job in a lot of answers. Now, on the flip side of it, that job gave me 2 years of how to run a program, how to fundraise, how to build a weight room, how to, how to recruit and get your eighth graders out, how to build a culture, how to do different things. What do you do well? What do you do wrong? In that class, when I left there to go to St. Thomas with sophomores 2 years later, they ended up winning, their conference title. So, I mean, that was been the first class we gotten all the way through, which, was that me? Was that whoever? I'm not sure. But I think that the point of that job was it prepared me tremendously for jobs like I, took today.
Yeah.
Jobs that I've been able to look at in the past and be able to say, okay, are you asking the right questions before you take this job? Have you talked to the right people? Have you reached out to the correct mentors?
Right.
Right. When I think, was it a bad job? No. Was it the right job for me at that time? I'm not sure, but I'm very thankful I took that job because that's a job, I learned a tremendous amount on, how to do things, what's right, what's wrong, and et cetera.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I love the perspective of that. I had the opportunity to do some speaking since I've gotten out the profession, and it's always, I always, kind of think about the listener, and I'm like, it's very easy for me to look at somebody and say, hey man, if somebody's offering you a job, you better ask the right questions rather than just taking a job. It's easy for me to say when I have a job and I'm not worried about that aspect of it. But I mean, I think that's something that's super important for you to be able to look at something and evaluate your ability to, number one, to have success, number one, or number two, are you ready for, what's going to be your life quality, all these kind of things that you need to balance. But you kind of said two different things there. You said, you better go and ask those questions and know what you're getting yourself into. And then on number two, especially in hindsight, what a tremendous opportunity for your growth. You had to learn on the fly, you had to definitely be trial by error. Let me ask you this question. In hindsight, you put yourself back in that situation, would you take the job again?
Yeah, I think I would still, there's never a regret taking a job.
There's never regret.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the part, again, taking that job, you get judged off wins and losses in this profession. That's just is what it is. It's an outside perspective. Everyone looks at it.
Yep.
I look at it now. There was, I always viewed it as a stand of like, man, I'm just terrible at what I do. There's no chance. There's no this. There's no that.
Right.
But I look at what it's done. And now where I'm at and getting into the college game and doing what I've done, like, jumping into a similar situation where we're at Eau Claire, a school that hasn't won in a long time, but we're trying to build it, and we're doing the things that we need to do. Like, and Coach Erickson now being the first time head coach, right? And seeing some of the things that he's talked about where it's kind of like, man, I never expected this. It's the perspective is, okay, well, I remember the first time going to an away game and being like, shoot, we didn't order the subs. Yeah. Well, that's on me. I'm the head coach, right? Right. So I think it just gives you that type of perspective on, when you're the head ball coach and everyone wants that title, but there's a lot of things that you don't anticipate ending up on your plate that's your job, right? It's not your D-line coach's job to get that done. It's not your, O coordinator's job to get the headsets and make sure everything's reconnected. Like, there's just so many different things that I got exposed to that now I feel better about it because I've had exposure to a reconditioning and technology and drawing cards and, recruiting, retainment. Like, there's just a bunch of different things I got exposure to at a really young age, that I had to handle hands on. Yeah.
Yeah. Having that experience, you know what I'm saying? Like at an early age, obviously gives you a lot of, I don't know. I guess use in these situations where you can be somebody that the head coach can, rely on and all that kind of stuff. And, even if you stayed at the high school level, you'll be a lot more prepared at the next job moving forward with a lot of runway still ahead of you. Now, after those couple of years there at Fort Atkinson, you take the opportunity to get at the, to hop to the collegiate level. At the time, St. Thomas was a Division III institution, but we're already in preparation to make the transition to FCS. Now I got to ask the question. Obviously, you recognize the lifestyle because you did play at the collegiate level. You kind of realize how much more time was kind of allocated to the game at that level. How did you go about making that decision to make the step to the collegiate level?
Yeah, it was always something that was kind of on my brain.
Yeah.
You're coaching high school, and I enjoyed it, and I really did. But there was always kind of that itch to be able to say, man, what do you do for a living? Why coach football? Right? Like, what an absolute cool job. And it might not make as much as the guy that's, a businessman or the sales guy, but I feel like everyone who talks about it's like, man, you got a sweet job.
Yeah.
Like, you coach football for a living? I'm like, yeah, we get, 11 kids to run around and hit people. Like, It's awesome. But the opportunity came about, it was after that second season at Fort Atkinson. I had gotten a call from Coach Caruso, and, I had known Coach Kaczynski, their defensive coordinator. We had exchanged messages, and, he had known about me at Whitewater and different things that we had done there, and the staff, they knew each other. And, I think he kind of saw what I was, the situation I was in, but he knew the kind of football I wanted to coach and where I wanted to get to. I remember him talking about it. He's like, we are what you need right now. And I thought at the time, like, man, what a weird statement to make. But in hindsight, like I said, I thought I was, knew what I knew, going where I was going. He's like, man, you can coach football. I've seen you. I've heard you talk. We know you can do it. If you want to get into this, what a tremendous place to come learn. At a level, a place that's been playing a high level of football, nationally recognized name, a staff that's, been consistent and really going good at what they do. And when I got that, I won't go into the numbers, but it was a significant pay cut. I mean, it was going from full-time teaching job to, hey, we're going to bring you on staff and we're going to see what you can do. But it was at the time, just talking with family and girlfriend that's now the wife. It was just one of those deals where it's like, listen, if we're going to do this, you got to go. Yeah. Because what happens, and I think it happens to a lot of people, they sit there and they dwell on it and they dwell on it and dwell on it. Eventually you're going to phase out.
Yeah.
You're going to be 35, 40 years old. You're going to have a couple kids, and, you're not going to be able to make a decision like that because financially you're not going to be able to do it.
Right.
So, we were both young, and, it was only about 4 hours from where I was, and ended up, making the decision, making the jump, going, and, spent 3 years there. And like I said, the experience there and the amount of, knowledge that I gained, both just from a program and how to run things and how a defense and what we did. I mean, it was an unbelievable experience.
Yeah, no doubt, man. You're hitting on so much good stuff here, just in terms of conversations I have with high school coaches that eager to make the transition. And then, not that all situations are created equal, but oftentimes there is a significant pay cut or, sacrifice that's involved with making that type of transition. And it only gets harder. It only gets harder over time. And, this because you sat in this 35 on 35 room, which we'll talk about at the end of this podcast. But, one of the things that has always resonated with me was James Franklin would say, stay broke as long as you can. And I you hear that for the first time, you're like, what a crazy statement. Like, I'm trying to make money and be rich now, but like that $40,000 that you mentioned, that first job, it was a fortune at that point in time. But then, you as you advance in your career, you realize that you're never going to make enough money. You're never going to be as rich as you want, all those kind of things. And so taking some of those sacrifices early to get the experience to maybe get where you want before you get married, before you have kids, they pay dividends. And so you mentioned girlfriend at the time, wife now. What was that discussion like when you're sitting there saying, hey, I don't know if it was a pay cut for you or anything like that, but hey, look, we're about to make a lifestyle change. I'm going to be gone a lot more than you've ever seen me. I'm going to make a little bit less, or whatever the financial situation was. How do you go about discussing that situation with somebody that might not even really understand the profession at that point?
Right. Well, it was a significant pay cut because when I took that job, to Coach Franklin's point, like, we were living a good life. Yeah. We were living together, making good money. She's got a really great job. and this job's now 4 hours away. I'm moving away, taking a pay cut to the point that I'm tutoring at the Sylvan Tutor Center for 2 hours, every night after work. And then I'm reffing flag football on Thursday nights in a men's adult league, which all those cats thought they were going to the NFL. And I was like, brother, none of you guys are going to play anywhere after this flag football. But I think, it sounds cliche, but I think everyone in my circle, my family, her parents, everyone kind of saw it. They're like, man, we can see the passion you have for doing this, that if you don't go after this, you never know what could come from this. Right. Like, you can go up there, and if it totally fails, someone in Wisconsin or Minnesota or Michigan, someone's going to need a teacher that wants to coach. Right. But if this door closes and another one never opens, right? Like, what if? And you sit there and you live the what if game. And I think that's a really sad game to play, because I think a lot of people have had that opportunity to take a jump or make a risk or bet on themselves and, go for something, and they don't do it because it's, well, what if this doesn't, what if that doesn't? So, that conversation was not easy. It took about a month to make a decision. The hard, crazy part too is this is 2 months before COVID happened. So luckily we didn't get furloughed. But to give up a full job where you get benefits and insurance and all these things, to go take a chance to see if this is going to work. It's a hard conversation. Those are real conversations. Right. But at the end of the day, it's, there's only limited opportunities in this life, and everyone's going to die at some point, which is, it's just reality. So if you don't go after them, if you don't, someone else will.
That's right.
Right. And I just want to wait for someone else to take that opportunity when it's been given to me. So, that was something, like I said, I took it, ran with it, worked out to the end and got me where I am.
That's right. That's right. Well, as you mentioned, you kind of took the risk, and with a fantastic guy, Coach Caruso has been there for a long time and continues to do fantastic things. And what I want to talk about a little bit, and this is a little bit more of a unique deal, but as you're seeing the landscape of college football changing, it seems like every year you're getting about 10 FCS programs that pop up to FBS to FBS programs, and you're getting a handful of trickle effect kind of down. This is something that people might experience a little bit more than others. And at the high school level, you're always seeing guys jump from, I don't know how they call it in Wisconsin, but, they call it 5A and 4A and 2A and 3A and stuff here, but you're always jumping divisionals and levels and all that kind of stuff. But you made a super unique transition from D3 to FCS during your time there. And the most unique thing, I guess, is most would anticipate that it was probably rough and you got the FCS and got your butts kicked, but you guys were, I'm pretty sure, won the conference in that first year, but just weren't able to, I guess, claim the title type situation. But just talk about that transition, what it was like to, move from D3 to FCS.
Yeah, that was 2022. That was year number 2 in the league that we ended up winning. We went 10-1, I believe, finished 21st in the country, somewhere in there. It was interesting because there's a lot of things, and talking to different people that they have that we didn't. Schools have video coordinator. Shoot, I was a video coordinator. Right? Schools have the recruiting coordinator. We had a recruiting coordinator as a full-time coach. We started, you look at it like, okay, what do we have? What do we need? What are all the things that these programs operate with? Right? But, to see it firsthand and hear some of the conversations and, even just moving from one office to the new offices and, hey, now the kids are getting this type of gear and, we get to travel like this and we're, traveling to these different places. It was interesting because the first year I was supposed to coach was the COVID year. Right. So that would have been their last year in Division III, right? Which, they were going to play St. John's and US Bank Stadium. And there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. Like, it would have been awesome to see that through because that would have been my first year college coaching to see where that team ended up. But to spend that full year in COVID and see all the different things that transitioned and all the different kids that came back and played to get to that, second year of, being at St. Thomas with the first year in Division I, was really interesting because game 2, we go line up against Northern Iowa at Northern Iowa. Right. And that's when, the Penning kid who's now in the NFL, who made all the headlines of him going to the Senior Bowl and, getting in fights and putting people in the dirt. Like, that was that team. Right. They're really good. Right. And just lining up there and seeing what big boy football, that's big boy football. And they're big boy football in Division III, but that's a whole different world. The Missouri Valley, like that's legitimate high-end college football. Right. And just seeing, the speed of it and the resources and how recruiting goes and all those different things, like it really sped up a lot of different, timelines that I think we had. But it was fun to navigate it, and see the challenges of, what Coach Caruso and how we had to do it defensively and all the different things that we had to adapt to. That I think people take for granted at that level, that when you see it, your Division III timeline gets moved up to Division I timeline where you're trying to recruit.
Yeah.
I mean, everything gets sped up. Your visits get sped up. When do kids come on campus? Are you holding camps? I mean, there was a lot of firsts that I got exposed to that, were really beneficial.
Absolutely. Now we kind of talk about the transition, but I want to talk about your personal transition. Similar to myself, I did the high school thing first and then transitioned to college, and it was a sigh of relief when I took the job. When I accepted it, it was like, okay, cool, I don't have to teach anymore. Although I enjoyed it. It was a lot of similarities and all that kind of stuff. But you replace that with more ball, which is appetizing, sounds exciting to any guy. But I mean, it's 6 a.m. to midnight when you're in season and spring ball, and when you're not recruiting, it's more ball. What was that adaptation like to, just to watch film to your eyes bleed, you know what I'm saying? And just be immersed in this world where you're 105 guys, whatever that roster limit was for you guys as you were making that transition. I mean, that was all it was about, pretty much 24/7.
Right. And for me, there was a lot of things I had never done.
Yeah.
Right. Like I had never gone on the road recruiting.
Right.
I had never made a recruiting phone call. So I think, the cool part for me is they kind of tossed me into the fire and said, hey, go take Iowa and Nebraska and just go recruit. Where am I supposed to go? I don't know. You'll figure it out. Right. Like you'll kind of figure this out as you go. You're fired. Right. Because I think that's the part that's unique. I don't have a background having GA'd and gone to a couple different places and been exposed to that and work for someone who can learn, teach you the ropes. Like it was more or less like, hey, try different things, see what works, see what doesn't work, what fits your style. But in terms of it just being football, I mean, that is kind of what I've been craving.
Yeah.
But I don't think people realize that, like, when you get away, like when coaches get away and they're on the golf course and they're on their boat, it's like you're trying not to do any football because the rest of your life, like I joke, still to this day with all my buddies, like we can't get around each other. We start talking football.
Yeah.
Like our staff here at Eau Claire, like we're really tight. We're pretty young and, we do a lot of things together, but everyone around us gets really irritated because every time we get around each other, it's, oh, hey, how you doing? Good. What do you think about this kid? Oh, and then we start talking football.
Yeah.
And it's just hard, in today's day and age just to get away from it. And it only gets worse as you go up levels.
That's right, man.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that, for us, it's just one of those deals where it's like, as a guy who's a, below average golfer and doesn't have a whole ton of hobbies and I don't like fishing. I mean, I don't have a lot of other things I like doing. I mean, that's what I like spending my time doing. If I'm not there, I'm at home. If I'm not at home, I'm, with my family. So, I mean, I think that, it takes a certain type of people, but I also think that's why this profession can eat you up and spit you out.
Yeah.
I think people can get burned out because they can't get away from it. They have no idea that, hey,
Right.
When you're working hard, work really hard. But when it's downtime, don't sit there and say, well, I'm going to go grind and do this. Like, take your downtime.
Take your downtime.
Yeah.
I mean, that's important that you kind of say that. I reflect back. I remember like having recruiting visits or, just talking to people that don't really understand the profession that, might be at an event with my wife or something like that. And they're like, yeah, you watch the Cowboys game? I'm like, man, I don't watch the NFL, man. First of all, on Sunday, I'm so tied up with my own trying to figure out how to get a first down. And then if I do have a free Sunday, man, I'm not going to go spend it watching somebody else play football. I'm either going to be watching my own team or I'm going to be enjoying the presence of my wife and my family, man. And that's just such an interesting way you kind of put that because you're right, man. You're just immersed in it all day, all the time. And so after spending some time there, having some very quick success in the Pioneer Football League, you get an opportunity to be a defensive coordinator. Once again, just fast flying through the profession. And in 2023, you got the opportunity to be the DC at Eau Claire in Wisconsin. How did you interview for the job? How did the job come about?
Yeah, so I interviewed our head coach, Rob Erickson, was at South Dakota State. He was their corners coach and the special teams coordinator for when the Jackrabbits won it. And I had known him. So he came to Whitewater right after that whole staff left for Buffalo. So he came in that spring, the last spring that I was kind of student teaching still around, and I'd met him and, kept a relationship with him. And kind of, I knew he maybe at some point at the right job in Wisconsin, he was going to go after it because he wanted to be a head coach.
Right.
He's always a guy that, I've admired his body of work. He's really good defensive mind. Everywhere he's been, he's won. And he's been at arguably two of the best programs at two different levels. I mean, he's been at Whitewater and they won at Whitewater. He's been at South Dakota State, went to two national championships, won.
Yeah.
And that's just a guy that I'm like, I trust what he's doing. I trust what he says. I trust his vision. When he took the job, I kind of looked at it having played in the conference like, man, Eau Claire has struggled, for a long time. He's like, just come check it out. He said, come interview, but come check out the city. Come check out the indoor that we're building. Come check out all the different things that were going on here, and come see campus. Campus is beautiful. Campus is big. We're about 10,000 kids. It's right on the Chippewa River. Town is about 70,000 people. It's the ninth biggest city in the state. So, I mean, there are a lot of things that, when I first drove over, I just had this perception in my mind because we'd only played here. I'd never seen the city.
Yeah. But
you start coming around the area and you're seeing all these different things like, man, this place is pretty awesome. The location is really great. It's somewhere that, I think people make this mistake. Like, it's awesome working somewhere, but you got to live there. Right. So just having seen it and just seeing all the different things, that it had to offer, and interviewing, and he offered me it. And having played in Wisconsin, my family's in Wisconsin, my wife is from Wisconsin. A lot of my friends are in Wisconsin. I mean, it was just one of those things to get back in the state and specifically this league. I mean, it's the best Division III league in the country and it's not close. I'd argue it's the SEC of Division III. I mean, there's no bye weeks when you're playing all the teams in this league. It's a high level of recruiting. It's a high level of coaching. They're really, really, really good people in the league that the opportunity to get back into Wisconsin was just something that I didn't think I could pass up.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this question. This is really going to be educational for me. I've kind of asked different guys and that have been in some of the kind of these local areas that end up having this type of experience. I grew up in Texas, played in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I've seen every college coach in the country, when I was going through the high school ranks and as a college recruiter, I definitely went through there and it was a hotbed of talent. And I'm not making any negative comments here, but you don't see a bunch of coaches flock into Wisconsin. But when you start talking about what you just said, I mean, you couldn't be more correct. I mean, it is Division III football. I mean, that's, the national championship winner is coming from that area, coming from that conference. How, I don't want to say with the lack of talent, because it's clearly there's talent there. How is that kind of cornered the market for just high quality Division III, hard-nosed, good football?
Yeah, well, and truthfully, I'm going to expand on that because then you take a look at all the programs up here. You go to Division II, you've got Minnesota Duluth, you've got Mankato,
right?
You've got Bemidji State, who are powerhouses, Augustana out in South Dakota. Then you go into the Dakotas, you've got North Dakota State, who plays pretty good football. You play South Dakota State, really good football.
Right.
So I think it's just one of those areas that, I think it's interesting listening. I was listening to a podcast by Phil Parker from probably 6 years ago, the coordinator at Iowa, and somebody asked me, "It's like, man, you've developed more 2-star kids and turned them into NFL players than I think anybody in the country."
Right.
And he said it's all about evaluation development, and I think that's the difference up here. Specifically Wisconsin, where a lot of the kids I think identify with the state. I mean, there is a strong sense of being from Wisconsin, staying in Wisconsin or staying in the upper Midwest, traditional upper Midwest values, that a lot of the kids, don't have maybe the opportunities of kids from different areas of the country or aren't exposed to that, or maybe are 3-sport athlete type kids where, they never get to that development point that they need 2 to 3 years of college.
Yeah.
Right. But when you look at the schools up here, from D3 all the way to, arguably FBS, right, with your Iowas and Michigan of last year, and just these different types of schools that are development type schools that consistently pump out high end talent. There's a lot of good football up here. It's just not going to be written in the stuff. So I think for that, I think the cool part for us is, you look at the rosters across, specifically our conference. I mean, it's Illinois, Minnesota, Wisconsin, a little bit of Iowa. I mean, that's all the kids, right? But even into some of these other states, I mean, you go into Illinois, North Central's Division III. I mean, they're a really good football program. Wartburg down in Iowa, Bethel in Minnesota, St. John's in Minnesota. I mean, those are all upper Midwest kids for the most part.
Yeah.
Right. So I think there's just a different type of, it's a different type of kid, and I don't know if the word flashy is necessarily the word to describe kids from the Californias and the Texas and the Floridas, but there's a reason everyone comes up here to try and find offensive linemen and fullbacks and tight ends.
Right.
They're a dime a dozen here.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just a different style of football. And I think it's a different brand that a lot of kids and coaches around this, this part of the country hang their hat on.
That's right. Yeah, that's right, man. Well, I appreciate you taking that deep dive there. Now let's go back to your first year as a defensive coordinator. Obviously we kind of talked about, I don't want to say getting thrown in the fire, but just accepting that head coaching job and just learning, by the seat of your pants a little bit. Obviously every experience that you have, even going back to as a player, really prepares you, for just different things you'll see throughout the course of your career. Did you feel prepared for that job? Did you feel as a coordinator that you walked in that thing a little bit more prepared maybe than as you walked in that head coaching opportunity there at Fort Atkinson? And then number two, what were some of the things that you did have to learn on the curve as you learn on the fly, as you went through your first year?
Yeah, and I don't know if you're ever ready because you think you're ready for a job.
Yeah, for sure.
And then you get presented a new set of challenges that you're like, man, I did not anticipate this going this way. And we fully took this job knowing, truthfully, it's a rebuild.
Yeah, right.
Right. I mean, call it what it is. I mean, so taking the job and knowing where we were coming from, and having to learn an entire new system. I mean, this is the system, that we run. I mean, we're a 4-3 based team that, run a lot of what South Dakota State runs. And it's a system I had zero exposure to. St. Thomas, we're like a 3-4 blitz everyone, bringing missiles from all over the place. Right. This is your traditional 4-3, play sound defense, technique. It's a really good defense. I mean, again, South Dakota State, the best team in the FCS last year, and it was close. To learn a new system and have to find answers to problems, right, was challenging because you face it when you have no previous, exposure, maybe that type of defense or what you're running or how it fits. Like, you're kind of trying to figure it out as you go. Now, the best resource we have is, Coach Erickson was on the staff there and knows a lot of the intricacies, but he's also the head coach. Yeah. He's got his own set of problems. He doesn't need to be sitting in our room all day trying to figure out what we're having issues with. Right. So I think that's been the fun part for our staff is we're trying to figure out, we watch their film, we watch different, people in the country that run something similar and, trying to piece together the answers and the issues and coming up with different things. But, again, in a league as unforgiving as ours, it's like you don't have time. Like everyone's got this idea that you have a bunch of time. We don't have time.
Yeah.
And no one's granting you any mercy because this league is already hard enough. They don't want another team that could potentially be a threat. So they're going to try and keep you down as long as possible. So I think for that, reflecting on year one, again, you think you know a lot, but I'm a year later having done now 3 different installs with it, having been able to talk to a number of people about it, being able to evaluate how we coach it and the different techniques. I feel like I knew nothing about it last year. I think that's important in coaching. I haven't had a year where I get a year later from the previous, time I thought about it and then man, I haven't learned anything this year.
Yeah.
Right. There's a whole slew of things that we've improved on that, hopefully carry us in the year 2 and, in the years coming.
Yeah. And I typically like to keep everything kind of flowing from job to job, but I do want to take a step back because I spent some time in the Pioneer Football League prior to taking this job at the AFCA. And I wanted to go back to your previous, what we were talking about previously, just with that brand of football that's in that Wisconsin, that northern part of the country, physical, hard-nosed, offensive line, tight end, fullbacks, all that kind of stuff. When you get into a conference like that where it's a lot more tight-knit and you're recruiting a lot of the same guys, competing for some of the same guys, I'm not saying playing the same style of football, but some similarities. It's blue-collar, it's tough, it's physical, versus, you mentioned playing in the 3-4 there at St. Thomas and blitzing. And, man, you're playing literally from California where you got to go play San Diego, all the way to Marist, up in New York and North Carolina. And you're seeing all types of athlete, all types of brand of football versus, once again, to my point, the kind of the tight knit. What is, from a philosophical standpoint, I know you went to DC at St. Thomas, but, just seeing different type of athletes literally from coast to coast versus playing against some of the same ball. Philosophically, how do you look at that defensively when you start talking about defensive structures and how you want to lay a defense out?
Yeah, it's interesting because you bring up the point. You go play San Diego, who was a pro style,
right?
Sling the ball over the yard. That had NFL talent there. To you go play Davidson, and they're like a triple team dang near.
Right. Yeah. Spread triple.
You go down to Stetson, and then you go down to Stetson, and it's 85 degrees in late October, and they're throwing the ball over the yard. Versus you go up to Drake, and they're in 12 personnel lot.
Yeah.
Right. So that presented its own set of challenges. That for us, I think the interesting part, in our league is it's a lot of 4-3. I would say a lot of the upper Midwest is a lot of 4-3 teams, 4-2-5 teams, 4-down teams, right? But to your point, when everyone's running something, it's like teams have seen a lot of what you're going to run.
Right. And you've seen,
so
you probably even seen that kid run it in high school because you're just kind of recruiting some of the same kids from what obviously what Whitewater might be able to get a better brand of kid. I don't even want to say that, but you are in some of the same high schools because the league is so tight knit.
Yeah, we're all recruiting the same kids.
Yeah,
right. I mean, everyone's there's only so many high schools, and it's like we can't.
Right.
Nobody in the Wisconsin league is going to New York to get kids.
Right.
They're not going to California to get a kid. I mean, those kids just aren't going to come to Wisconsin and go to a public league. But I think it's just the league is so good offensively. And the part about it is because we all talk to each other, and everyone in the conference knows each other, and everyone's seen each other, and it's a league. There's not a lot of turnover.
Yeah.
Truthfully, the quality of life. I think anyone that has any attachment to the Upper Midwest, at some point in their career, they would say, "Man, I wish I could just go back into the Wisconsin League and coach." Good quality of life. You know what you're doing. The area is tight. There's only longest bus trip might be 4 hours. There's no plane ride. Like there's a lot of benefits to it, and it's really good college football, right? But when it's so tight knit, I mean, there's no secrets. Everyone's talking. Everyone's sharing ideas. There's different coaches on different. They're closer than others, so they're going to give you everything. So, I mean, it comes down to how well can you coach kids, right, and how technical are the kids. And the scheme is a scheme, but I've always said, I mean, there's no amount of talent that can overcome bad technique.
Yeah.
Right. There's no amount of scheme that can overcome bad technique.
That's right.
Right. So, I mean, the really good teams in this league play with a really, 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 really high end technique. I think that's just something that, again, it's a daily progress for us and something that we continue to work at.
Amen. Well, Coach, I've enjoyed this, man. But I made mention earlier in the podcast about you've been a part of the AFCA 35-35. You were part of that 2020 class, and man, I just couldn't be more proud of just you guys that were part of the program and how you continue to elevate. Number one, personally, throughout your career as a man, as a family, just all the stuff that watching you guys kind of go through the profession, but just more how you're just seeing guys, elevating their career as defensive coordinators and offensive coordinators and head coaches, and just be proud of how you're elevating that program and making guys be more and more interested because more and more guys are, former 35-35 member, is there our new defensive coordinator type situations continue to rise, man. I'm so proud. What was it like? What was your experience like for that, being a part of that program? And then why would you recommend guys be a part of it?
Yeah, that program was eye-opening. I had just taken the job at St. Thomas. So it's kind of like, walking in there as a high school guy. I was like, oh, man, okay. Oh, hey, I got the college job. Sweet.
Right.
But I think for that specific program, for me, it's always been something I believe it. Like it's a kind of run your own race program, right? Like there's a lot of different guys at a lot of different stages that I know. Guys, for example, first name came to mind, Alex Golish. That dude's a head coach at South Florida now.
Yeah.
Right. He was in the same seat, sitting there next to me at the program. I'm sitting here at D3 school in Wisconsin as a DC, and everyone's kind of running your own race, and you're doing your different things and you value different things. But I think the part of that program, I still keep in touch with quite a few guys from that program at different parts, different parts of the country and different programs and all different levels. It's a really cool program for people that get the opportunity to take part in it. I would highly encourage anyone that can to apply for it, just because you get to see the variety of opinions and lifestyles and who's been where and how did they get there and what are they like. And for some people, if they want to network and it might lead to your next job, right? But I think at the end of the day, it's just really interesting to see, you know, as good of a football coach you think you might be. There's some cats in there that can coach football.
Yeah.
Right. Like really, really, really high end football. And I thought that part was really impressive just to see guys around my age at different points of their career because they've taken different paths.
Yeah.
Right. But I lean on what Coach Leifel is, you know, he's kind of always said, like, he was Division III coach till his late 40s. Right now, he's one of the best Power 5 or Power 4 coaches in America. Right. So there's really no right or wrong answer. And I think that's just, you know, for everyone that's, you know, trying to get jobs and advance up the ladder and do different things. It's really just be where your feet are at and be, you know, take advantage of the opportunities you're given. I think that really helps you.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, you messed up my 2020 class, to be honest with you, because you were one of the high school guys I got, and then it was like as soon as you got in, you hit me up. It was like, hey man, I'm going to St. Thomas. I'm like, oh, it was fine, man. I mean, that's we just love to see the elevation and the moving forward. And you're right, just, you know, looking at that class, obviously seeing. It's easy to look at the guys that have these. I was chuckling because you said Power 4, and I have not quite got used to saying that yet. But you look at these guys that's got some of these Power 4 jobs. Man, that's awesome. I love that, man. But just, you know, watching the guys that might have been at the P5 level, P4 level at the time that you know, now are high school head football coaches, or, you know, just looking at how guys are navigating the profession. And that's what we hope to get out the podcast, is just seeing that is no cookie cutter way to do this thing, man. And it's no career path that's just you know, that's going to be the same, and everybody's on their own journey and running their own race. I love that you said that, man. I appreciate the time, man. It was fun to dive into that Wisconsin culture and you know, take a journey through your career. But before I let you go, I know you have a great social media presence. If you wouldn't mind sharing your Twitter account, just so guys connect with you, ask questions, keep up with what you guys got cooking over there at Eau Claire.
Yeah, my Twitter handle's at Coach Grayvold. So it's just at Coach Grayvold, my last name. But pretty active on there. Like I said, I'm always willing to help. You know, if you reach out, like I said, you know, to your point, there is no one journey to get to where you want to go to, and I'd like to think mine is relatively unique. And you know, hopefully, some high school coach out there takes a chance and gets an opportunity like the one I've been blessed to have.
Amen. Amen, Coach. Well, I appreciate your time as always, man. I look forward to seeing you at the convention. All right, man?
All right. Thank you very much.
All right, brother.
CoachComm has been delivering tough headsets for tough teams for more than 31 years. It's why 97% of FBS teams and thousands of high schools across the country rely on CoachComm. Get the best for your team. Visit CoachComm.com for more info.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Inside the Headset, presented by CoachComm. If you'd like to learn more about this week's episode, head over to AFCA.com. There, you can access every episode and find corresponding show notes. Remember, you can catch every episode of Inside the Headset, presented by CoachComm, on wherever you get your podcasts, including Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. While you're there, we'd love for you to take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Your feedback helps us improve and grow. Keep up with the latest news by following us on social media. Connect with us at Inside the Headset, and remember to tag us when you share your favorite episodes. For more updates on all things AFCA, be sure to follow the @WeAreAFCA social media accounts. If you're not a part of the AFCA community yet, visit AFCA.com to join thousands of NFL, college, and high school coaches nationwide and across the globe. Elevate your coaching game with an AFCA membership. You'll gain exclusive access to the annual AFCA convention, magazine, digital library, and AFCA Insider email. Stay up to date with the latest stories and news on the AFCA website. More than just a convention, the AFCA offers continuous education, guidance, networking, and more. Celebrate the past and shape the future with the AFCA. It's about fostering exceptional coaches who create outstanding teams and even better individuals. Invest in your skills and make a lasting impact today by engaging with the AFCA. Your journey starts here.